good thing to do while people are waiting to join. Anybody wanna make sure I've let everybody in who wants to be in? Oh, here's Graciela. We're gonna welcome in Graciela, I hope. There she is. So she's connecting. So it's always so interesting for me what attracts people to doing things, although I'm seeing that I'm having some constant playmates with you guys, which I appreciate.
I'm trying to set the link to our WhatsApp group because they don't know about the meeting tonight.
Oh, because
but I cannot put the link, the Zoom link, into the WhatsApp. So I'll just.
Can you ask them?
Is that you want me to send the Zoom link on Telegram to your Telegram, then you can copy and put in WhatsApp?
Well, I have it on Telegram, but we have a small group with Beverlee that we're doing on WhatsApp, and I'm trying to copy the Zoom link to WhatsApp, but that doesn't work well.
Can you copy the Zoom link to the group thing that I send around on email? Remember, I also sent something.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to. I'll try to do that. I'll see if that can work out.
No, it's very interesting because some people, it seems like I have to admit, and Charisse, you came in without me admitting you, which I prefer. Hi, Stella.
Hello. It's funny because I got a pop-up that said, please wait for the host to let you in, but apparently it did it on its own.
Yeah. And you, Stella, did you?
I was waiting for a host to let me in.
Okay, I let you in without realizing it. Yeah, that's a feature they just put on, I think. So, so welcome everybody. Thanks for sharing a part of your Sunday with me. A sacred rest fun day usually, or relaxing day or something, right? Now we're going to talk about blaming ourselves.
What could be better?
Oh, yeah, what could be better? Well, it's kind of like, you know, it's definitely has been a religious day Sunday, right? So self-blame is definitely included in that. All right.
Oh, Graciela, she's wonderful. She did it. She put it on the WhatsApp group. So everybody...
Oh, but we're not seeing her face. I would really...
No, she has no camera today.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, Graciela, without a camera, I'm welcoming you and appreciating your presence in the great abyss. I'm sensing you and feeling you. So, so hi everybody. It's 11:03. Let's just wait a couple minutes. Anybody want to check in, say how they're doing from where they're doing? I'm looking. Yeah, go ahead, Isa.
Hi, I'm from Belgium. Doing fine. We're going into our second wave lockdown here in Belgium. No restaurants, no bars, no going out. People are getting really mad about the things, so we need to be staying calm and just relax and breathe in, breathe out, so that, you know, things go. And we're gone for another 4 weeks of lockdown, I think. But doing fine.
It's amazing what's happening now around the world for all of us. Something that's really amazing is how shared this experience is globally. It feels like, you know, I studied metaphysics here, really learning that all tree roots are all connected and there's all a communication throughout the globe. So metaphysically, they used to say that if you want to spread anything, you just go talk to a tree and then it spreads. And I feel like there's that network happening between humans, and that COVID has become a thread of the fabric that's joining us, which is so like unexpected as a joining force, you know, as far as I'm concerned. Although they have always said that, you know, if an alien came down, that might bring us together as people. And I guess this is as alien as we have knowingly experienced. Okay, so thanks, Isa. I know we are looking at Europe and kind of, you know, seeing that as our probable future, you know, although I don't even know if we ever got out of the first wave. Anybody else want to? Sarko, where do you live?
I live in New York State, in Albany, which is kind of halfway between Canada and New York, on the hill here, and I cope pretty well with that, except, you know, I'm kind of didn't see a person for last 2 weeks, and my daughter calls me every 2 days, so it is a little isolated. Fortunately, I have people like you meet on different kind of meetings where I can kind of see the people and talk to them.
Can you imagine when they had the Spanish flu and they had none of this? You know, it would have been such a, you know, because I got, you know, as odd as this Zoom stuff is, I do feel really connected, like on a spirit level, essence to essence, to the people that I am talking with. And then when they leave, it's always like a little weird. Like, did I just connect with like a flat picture on my screen and felt like it was really this intimate connection? So it's so interesting and odd. You know, I'll tell you this. I don't think I said this in my last class, but you know, I've studied spirituality for like since I was a young teenager, and oh, I just forgot exactly what I was going to say. That's so interesting. It went in and it went out. That is so interesting. I have no idea, so I'm not going to say it. I must not be a good story to tell right now. That is so, it really went in and out. Like, okay, if it comes up again, I'll share it. If not, forget about it. Okay, I think I'm going to start. I think we're at a good time to start. So, you know, 40-something years ago. Oh, no, I'll start before. Talk about being a teenager that was on a quest of spirituality or a quest of adventure, I'll say. When I was 15, a friend of mine, who's still a friend of mine, came to me and said, my brother's doing something really cool. Would you like to do it? And I said, okay. And it turned out that I started to meditate. His brother had learned how to do Maharishi's, the Beatles guru, meditation. And so what I had signed up for was to learn how to meditate at 15. So first of all, just as an interesting story, you needed your parents' signature in order to do it if you were a minor. And my father's response, my father was a pretty wise, worldly guy, but at the same time, his response was, no daughter of mine is going to end up in a cave in India. So he was a little freaked out about it, but talked him into it. And I ended up studying with Maharishi. when I was 18, 19, and then 20, 21. And I remember being in a big group with Maharishi. There were like hundreds of people in the group. I'm just going to take a drink. And I remember Maharishi being really excited and saying, "Oh, this is so beautiful, and all of your people here." And he said, "And there's angels here," and he went on and on and on. And my response is like a 19-year-old was, "Oh shit, there's angels here, and I can't even see them." So where I went with his joy and his reality and his whatever, and the fact that maybe we were a gathering of hundreds of people and maybe there were angels there, instead of kind of getting into the joy of it, I got into the self-blame of it, that something was happening that I didn't have the ability to experience. And so it kind of went on from there. Then I ended up coming to California at the age of 26 to study psychology and to explore consciousness. And then when I came to California, which always, you know, the reason why I wanted to come to California is it always felt like a state that was on the edge of exploring spirituality, consciousness, science. You know, it was like very edgy. So I think I always felt to come here, even as a young kid. And then I came here, and then there was like this big spiritual movement about positive thinking and you create your own reality and all those kind of things. And what I kept seeing everywhere is people buying that you create your own reality and let's think positively, and then their life not working out. Like, let's say they had cancer and then they were trying to think themselves positively healthy, and then they didn't get healthy, so they were sick, trying to heal, and then blaming themselves for not being successful. So and then I would go to N.L.P meetings, and there were all these people, a lot of men doing this, sorry guys, saying, you know, I'm teaching you this and I'm so great. And basically, if only you spend all your dollars taking seminars with me, you too can live this perfect, gung-ho, everything's positive life. I got to know a lot of these people personally, and underneath the veil, they kind of were not very together and not being truthful about what they were selling. So so what I noticed is that people would come to these workshops and they would see these people with these stories of enlightened perfection, and that they would go leave the workshop, not question the workshop or the ideals of the workshop, and then go home and feel worse about themselves. So I just started to see this pattern, and I ended up writing, well, and also I was good at doing that as well. So when you're going to write something, they say, write something that you know about. So my dissertation for my Ph.D. was on self-blame as a consequence of self-improvement programs. So I assumed, which is, you know, this was like 42 years ago I came up with this, and I still threaten that I'm going to write a book about it, and still people in these fields tell me how relevant it is for them. And I love talking to people, and I feel really inspired by questions or participation. And I just don't love sitting in a blank screen. It just doesn't, I'm not stimulated or inspired to write as much. And interestingly enough, also, when I was writing this, I kept having this playfulness and sense of humor about it. And this guy was kind of tutoring me and coaching me and helping me write it. And he kept kind of squelching that playfulness. So it's very funny, like it's a little harder for me to have the same playfulness I had. I kind of, coached it out of myself about this subject. The other little story I'm going to tell you, just because it's funny, is that as I was writing this dissertation, it is, I do think it's true that what you focus on is what you get to experience. So when I was writing this, I was so shocked because I thought that there'd be all this writing about self-blame, and then I would be specific about, so I would just do a review of that literature. And then I would do my special bent of, look what happens when you go to do these self-improvement programs. And then you start out by, you come into the program blaming yourself because you burnt the toast, but you come out of the workshop blaming yourself for blaming yourself, or blaming yourself for not, like let's just use this language in this case, because you're not in coach state enough. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, writing is not my first ability or joy. So I was like writing this and rewriting this. My dad was helping me live while I was doing my dissertation. He was giving me money, and I was just not doing great with it. And I was also saying, what you focus on is what you get. Because things weren't written on self-blame, I was reading books on guilt and shame. There was one book on self-criticism I found. So, I was really living in guilt and shame and self-blame for the first part of my dissertation, which lasted for, it took me a few years to write my dissertation. So one day, I think I went to one of the first Ericksonian conferences, and Stephen sees me in the lobby, and he says to me, would you be my demonstration subject? So I said, okay. So I meet him, and I don't know how many people were in the crowd. It seemed like 2,000 to me, but I think it was a lot. But anyways, it seemed like at least 1,000 people in my memory. And so Stephen says, what do you want to work on? And I said, well, I'm doing my dissertation, and it's taking me so long. I'm really giving myself a hard time about it, and I really don't feel good about myself, And then we were talking, and then we were talking more. He was asking me other questions, and then he says, knowingly, he says, so I said, basically, I'm blaming myself. I basically said that. And he said, well, that's really interesting. And then he said, and by the way, what is the subject of your dissertation? And I looked at all these people, and I said, I'd really rather not say. And then Stephen stopped, because I knew, what it was going to sound like. So Stephen said to me, no, really, what is the subject of your dissertation? Anyways, this went on for a little bit of play until I was like, okay, I'll say it. I'll say it. And then I told everybody that my dissertation was on self-blame. So 1,000 people, of course, burst out laughing, and it was funny. So, so I think this is a really important subject, and part of what I think is important about it is that when I really look at what my work, I feel like my work is, or my mission is, although a psychic once told me, let me see if I can remember what she said, a psychic who didn't know who my friends were, didn't know who I was, said to me 40 years ago, your mission is to help improve the human emotional condition, I'm glad I'm remembering it, by communicating to the unconscious mind. Can you believe she said that? I was already studying, you know, I had already met Erickson. I had already been studying with mostly Schema's partner at the time, Paul Carter. I was, you know, doing N.L.P. I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. But so I think my mission really feels like helping people love themselves. Because if we love ourselves, we're so much more willing to be kind and loving to each other. You know, you can just know from yourselves when you're in a crap mood, how are you with other people? And when you feel full and joyful and whatever, how are you with other people? So it feels like, this is just a subject, but it feels like being able to handle subjects like this is my little contribution towards trying to have some world peace. So, you know, it's interesting to think about it in its bigger picture for me. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of I'm going to read my definition I have. If I don't even have a light, so forgive me for a second. You're not going to see me that well, so I can have a light. So the definition of self-blame that I have written, I don't even remember if it's my own or if I got it out of a dictionary because it's an old definition, is a self-critical process in which the individual judges that something he, she said, did, thought, and or felt was inappropriate, wrong, bad, contemptible, ineffective, etc. And then ascribes, I think this is my definition, and then ascribes their responsibility, the responsibility for that behavior to him or herself. This ascribing of responsibility can positively lead to rectification of behavior or to learning for future reference, or negatively to feelings of guilt, inadequacy, self-hate, and low self-esteem. So what made you guys interested in talking about self-blame? Let's do like little short things for each person, and because then it's fun for me instead of giving up. I'll talk about self-blame a little bit more, and then we'll go around, and then I'll talk more. In order to have self-blame, you need to be comparing what's going on to something. Just hold on. Okay. Christina Berkeley. Oh, she just put a happy face or something. I don't know. I was just trying to see if she was trying to join. Let me just see this picture. I didn't know how to, can you do this? No. I didn't know how to put a slide. Oh, well, you see, can you, is it backwards?
No, it's good.
Okay. So you
idealized vision.
Idealized vision and lesser vision.
Lesser vision.
So in order to blame yourself, you have to be having some kind of idealized vision. Sometimes we're aware of what that is. Sometimes we're not aware of what that is. I'm going to give you an example. I was supposed to do a presentation, and I got so freaked out about doing this presentation. And this was kind of recently. And all old stuff came up, and I was like, I don't know, and I can't do it, and I shouldn't do it, and maybe I won't do it, you know, because it was like I was so uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable, like I was gonna die, like someone was gonna judge me, and I was gonna die. But I didn't even exactly know what the dynamic was. And then I saw a colleague in this field do a presentation, and the presentation that they did was great, but it wasn't like life-changing, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, and then all of a sudden I had realized that my unconscious idealized vision was that I was now supposed to be presenting something that was going to be like God-like, life-changing, and that if I didn't in that hour or whatever it was, like present something that was like an earthquake positively to consciousness, then I was a failure and I would be judged and whatever. So when I could identify the vision I had, which was not realistic, I could relax and go, oh, I could do that. So in my mind, what I was supposed to live up to was so beyond what I was capable of doing, at least in my knowledge. And it reminded me, because it's another idealized vision. Years ago, I actually turned this guy on to, in high school, like, to meditation. And he came back to me and became an architect. And he came back to me and he said, you know, Beverlee, he said, what I want to do is build a building that everybody who looks at it will just experience God. And I heard that and I went, that sounds like a really big goal that you have for yourself here. I said, you know, even Jesus didn't get everybody. You know what I mean? Like, do you really think that that's going to happen? Because if you set yourself up in that idealized vision for something that really you can't get a bite out of, you are setting yourself up for failure. So it really does correlate to that N.L.P thing of, I can't remember what they call it, but a reasonable outcome. Like, is the outcome that you're putting out for yourself reasonable? So I would ask you, if you, like me, are freaked out, for example, and don't even know exactly why, I ask you to begin to look at, what am I comparing myself to? What is this vision? And it's especially interesting to find the visions that you're not conscious of that are running your life, you know. So so that's one thing. The other thing is, in the idealized vision, is that often we have conflicting idealized visions. It's interesting because I found in my work with people, the lesser vision, the I'm stupid, the I'm crazy, I'm not enough, I'm not slim enough, I'm not rich enough, I don't have enough clients, I can't do that hour seminar, or whatever it is. You can have many, many different negative ideas about yourself, and it doesn't seem to have a conflict. Somehow we're able to easily have a soup of the negative ideas. But in the idealized vision, there's sometimes conflict. So in the beginning, for example, when I first started to be aware of this, so I came in with a kind of a spiritual Maharishi thing about being peaceful and love and everything. But then I came to California and I started to learn Gestalt stuff with people who had studied with Fritz Perls, and then you're supposed to be angry and you were supposed to yell and you're supposed to like bang on cushions and you're supposed to. So it was like, okay, so like then there's the conflict, or your father has an ideal for you and your mother has a different one, and so like sometimes we are going back and forth between what our ideal should even be. So I think it is interesting also, and believe me, we could do a whole bunch of seminars on this. We could just do a seminar and maybe we will do it, on just exploring all these idealized visions that we have that we're not even conscious of, that are running our lives, So, and especially to have, the good news about this work, which was true in its inception. Like there's been some things that this, like Stephen has been so wonderful, I find, in the last few years of really bringing his own foibles and humanness to the seminars. And I started doing that as soon as I started to think about it, as soon as I started to see all the people who were, telling you that there's something didn't stink and that you should only follow them. I started to, with my clients, tell them the exact truth. Like even now, and I do a lot of couple counseling and I love it, but I'll say to people, look, I'm not telling you that you should be this way all the time. I am not this way all the time. Sometimes like I'm a big idiot in relationships. And I said, the only thing is I never really get what I want when I act that way, but I do act that way. And so I'm not asking you to be this perfect person, because like, why would I do that in therapy either? So I kind of notice with people in general, this particular class that I'm teaching you runs my life, is like, I will give a compliment to people on the street, or a server in a restaurant, which doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, I used to when I could go to a restaurant. And I could say something like, you're so sweet. And then I can hear all the counter examples going on in the person's head. I can hear it. You're so sweet. And I'll say to people all the time now, I know you have other parts of you that are vengeful and mean and awful, I'll say it so that the other person can hear, I see you. Mm-hmm. But, what I really see is that you have a sweet heart, So, and I can see the relaxation and the more acceptance when people can really learn about the other side. And that reminds me of one of Stephen's, one of my favorite exercises he does. And it's fun because he often, in trance camp, if he does this exercise, will ask me to do it with him. And the exercise that I'll be curious if any of you have done it, or all of you have done it, that exercise where you sit with a partner and you say, what I want you to see about me is blah, blah, blah. What I don't want you to see about me is blah, blah, blah. And have you done that, Zarko?
Yeah, Zarko.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because everybody else was kind of saying yes, and I didn't see that with Zarko. I just want to know. And there's such a relaxation about it to do that. My only problem with Stephen is he often will say the thing I want to say first. Like he'll say, like, I want you to see that I'm nice and generous, but I don't want you to see that I'm really pissed off. And I'm going, I was going to say that one next. So I have to think of a new one. But there's something about so the thing about this work that I have loved from its inception, and I love it more now than I did in the beginning. When I say this work, I'm even counting N.L.P. and that whole thing, is that you know, all parts, all feelings, all something are accepted, and there's like a knowledge that they can all exist at the same time. So that's a useful thing for idealized vision, which when I was first exploring this, I didn't have that good a sense of, but you know, there is that thing of, I can, you know, yes, I can be sweet and kind, and yes, I can be a warrior, and yes, I can be playful or be a kid, or yes, I can completely fuck up and be a great human, and all those kind of things. So it's a good exploration to visit your all the things that you value that are in your idealized vision. You know, I'm just thinking that if anybody's interested, I could send you my email address, or what could we do to have this be a group? Well, if you sent it all to my email address, I could maybe develop a group for this, but just starting to put out, like, what are your idealized visions? What are they? You know, just to have a space, just to have a structure in which you can think about it more fully. So the good news about self-blame, well, I'll start with the bad news. The bad news about, no, let's start about the two different kinds of self-blame. So when I was trying to write about self-blame, there was one book on self-criticism, and there was one study on self-blame, and it was about rape victims. And they were seeing who got better quicker, and they talked about two different kinds of self-blame. One was behavioral, which is, I did this seminar and I didn't do it well. You know, it's a behavior. I didn't prepare long enough. I didn't something. So I could take responsibility for it and say I didn't prepare it well enough. The other kind of self-blame is characterological. So it's, oh, I'm the kind of person that just can't do a good seminar. And what they found is that the women who had behavioral self-blame, which was, you know, I was walking in an area of town that really wasn't a safe area, and I should have been, you know, more careful, or I let someone in my apartment and they didn't know him well enough, or whatever it is. The ones who had behavioral self-blame actually healed more quickly than the ones who took no blame at all, or the ones that had the characterological blame, which was, well, I'm just the kind of person that someone would rape, you know, or, you know, I did nothing and it happened. You know, those people took the longer time to heal. So I would also start to look at your languaging when you're not being kind to yourself, and see how you're talking about it, because behavioral blame, obviously, you can shift. You know, if I don't feel like I prepared enough for a seminar, I can prepare more the next time. If I am the kind of person who can't give a good seminar, the job is kind of huger. So it makes a difference how you give yourself feedback, which brings me to the usefulness of, okay, again, I'm going to start with the not usefulness. So self-blame, you know, self-blame is not the same thing as guilt, which some people think it is. Self-blame is just a step that you have to take to get to guilt. It can bring you to guilt, to shame, and even to suicide. So it's a serious, certainly low self-esteem, and sometimes inability to act, because it kind of whacks, you know, the definition of power is that you have an ability to act. And when you blame yourself and you start to tell yourself you can't do something, you take away a lot of that ability to act, that power from yourself. So you just want to be aware. You know, one of the things that's interesting about doing trance camp is that people come from 20, 30 countries. I've said this a million times. It's one of the best things I've gotten out of trance camp, is they have different socioeconomic statuses. They have different educations. They're men, they're women. They are young, they're old, different countries, different cultures, different religions. And we're all saying the same self-blaming or blaming things. So we're either, you know, there are people that are, if you identify with the idealized vision and you don't identify with the lesser vision, then you're most likely a blamer. Like I had a friend, I love him. He calls me the teacher's teacher, which I like. And it's because I think I've worked with him a lot. But he used to I met him studying with Maharishi, and he's a very big kind of guru type of teacher in the world. But you know, he was like, when I first met him, he was like, well, I walked in a room and I got a headache because other people like had headaches, and I felt bad because other people were feeling bad. Like it was never him. It was never his. It was like he was identified with the idealized vision and never like with the peon feelings that you could have. They were always someone else's that he was like picking up. Or, you know, people that blame other people a lot are only taking responsibility for like their righteousness, their idealized vision, and they're disassociating from the lesser vision and blaming other people. So projection and all, you know, like Trump comes to mind. So, you know, there's a lot of people that mostly identify with the lesser vision. So they're the downtrodden ones. They're the ones that aren't powerful. They're the ones that aren't smart. But the other people, they own the idealized vision. They're the smart ones. They're the capable ones. They're the authentic ones. They're the ones that are whatever, rich, famous, smart, what kind, whatever. So so it's also good to kind of be aware of building a relationship, like knowing you're everything there. You're everything along the scale. So if you're a growing person, you're going to have an idealized vision of even where you want to go, and then you're going to have that lesser vision because you're not there yet. And to me, I think about it like a caterpillar. Like every time you want to grow, the idealized vision goes out, and so there's distance, and then you like spend your time catching up to that idealized vision. So and then you think of another one, and then you catch up to that, and that's kind of growth, right? So you're always going to be a little separate if you're a growing person from an idealized vision that you have. So that's why being sweet to yourself when you're not matched up to your idealized vision is a really positive thing to do. Is that kind of clear for everybody? So the one thing I also noticed, by the way, is that people in general don't give themselves that many kudos when the lesser vision has reached the idealized vision. So my big suggestion is spend more time in celebration and in giving yourself that, you know, I did that. You know, really stay there, because what I find people often do is like, oh, okay, I did that. So like, okay, now I want to do this. And then, okay, and then that ends up giving people a life of succeeding at things but not feeling fulfilled. So you need to give yourself, we all need to get, and I'm saying it for you and I'm saying it for clients or kids, you know, for those of you who have kids. You know, it's really important to have like some luxuriating time when you really succeed at what you set yourself out to do. Even if it's for a moment, if I'm scared to do something and I do it, maybe I'll be scared again and I won't do it. Maybe I'll choose to not do it. But that particular time I'm scared and I do it, the more I can really give myself accolades or pats on the back or like nurturing or recognition, you know, it feeds us. It just feeds us. So it's not everybody is missing that step, but a lot of us are. So just that little feedback. So the usefulness of self-blame is that it gives us feedback. So someone without self-blame, you know, is like sociopath, psychopath. I could also think of that same name I just thought of not that long ago. So you want people to have some self-blame because the positive aspect of self-blame is responsibility. It's feedback. And it's one other thing that I can't think of. Hold on. That's funny. Oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. The thing about self-blame is that it's often a strategy that we have to be protective of ourselves and or motivated. So you know, are you going to be motivated by a carrot or a stick? Most of us were brought up by a generation of people that were motivated by a stick. Does everybody get the metaphor? No. So as an act of self-love, we think about motivating ourselves with a stick. And if we don't have the stick, there's the fear that maybe we won't move. Maybe we won't get it. Maybe we won't have a good life. My story is that after survival, we all want, because we all want to survive, we all want love and respect, and we want to have a good life. So all the issues I find that people have is like all fears that strategies around having a good life or fears about not having a good life. So so we're afraid some of us, if we don't use the stick, then we won't be motivated, then we won't succeed, we won't keep bettering ourselves, and we won't have a good life. Then we use self-blame as a way of being protective. You know, I years ago worked with a friend of mine who's an actress, and you know, we worked on her being relaxed, going to do auditions, and one of her strategies, which I have used, is to criticize herself and blame herself so that she wouldn't go. So if she wouldn't go to the audition, then she couldn't be killed by the rejection or the judgment of it. So it's a protective thing, or else we do it because if we judge ourselves first, we take the sting and the surprise out of if someone else is going to judge us. So we'd rather be miserable. I find this in general in life, and like with a protective scenario, like I'll just keep judging myself and blaming myself and criticizing myself, and then I'll be safe, and no one will. I won't ever just be open and vulnerable, and then someone will come and surprise me. Instead, I'll stay closed and self-blaming and miserable, but I'm in control in some way, and I'm safe. So it's just important. You also just want to look at some of the intentions of the self-blame, because it starts to reframe that part of you. It can begin to help you you know, find that thing that Stephen says it makes sense. You know, I'm sure this makes sense. Or you know, what people used to talk about, which I still like, about, you know, finding the positive intention of each part of us, or finding the essence or the spirit underneath the things that we do. So I find self-blame is an effort for us to have a good life, but it is often is a, you know, not great strategy. So if we can kind of lovingly hold that part as a part of us that has the ability to give us like feedback, so we can actually change and get better at things, and that it's a part that wants us to have a good life and to motivate us, and it's a part that wants to protect us, it can give you a different slant, so you're not blaming the self-blamer. Does anybody do that? Nobody? I'm the only one that blames my self-blamer. You know, I can judge myself for judging myself, is what I'm saying. So, so that's that. So you want to have a level of self-blame without all the stories of what it means. So if you can, you know, if I'm having trouble in a relationship, I want to see, what am I doing that, you know, I have a man who's been in my life for a long time, and I used to be really mad at him for not seeing my wisdom. Then I realized a couple of things that made me laugh, because like other people see my wisdom and he's not seeing my wisdom. And then I realized I haven't been that wise around him because I've been pissed off at him for not seeing my wisdom. So I'm like, what kind of wisdom is he supposed to see? And then the other thing that I thought was funny, which was just about paying attention to myself, I'm just going to add this because it was part of it, was how wise am I if I need somebody else to see my wisdom? Like, you know, what is wisdom really dependent on somebody else seeing it, you know, for you to be wise? So I was like, so that whole, like, you know, rant that I had inside of me, it was really good to look at it and take responsibility for it. Like, why should someone see my wisdom if I'm not being wise? And why am I blaming somebody else for recognizing my wisdom when being wise and being in recognition of the wisdom is its own thing, you know? There's nothing else you need to do. So it's just important to keep looking at yourself and taking responsibility and seeing, because so then the other useful tactic for self-blame is that you look at what you did that maybe didn't work. You also want to take self-blame for the good things, but we're just talking now about things that don't work for a second. And you are, so hold on, so what was my train of thought? So you are looking at what you did, and you want to know if you made a mistake. Oh, and that's a word I love for this thing. Someone remind me in a couple of sentences of the word mistake, okay? Who's willing to do that? Anybody? Okay, Cherise. So, so you either can go back and shift what it is that you did. You know, like I can go, if I am angry or irritated or something, I could go back to somebody and say, look, I'm sorry, my nervous system seems really riled right now, or I was upset about something else and I took it out on you and I'm sorry, or whatever. And if you can't do it, because there's lots of times we can't rectify it because it's done or the person's gone or whatever the story is, it's not rectifiable with the situation, then one of the strategies I have found it useful is get in touch with your value that you have underneath what you did. And if you can't change it for that situation, make commitments to bring that shift into your future situations. Does that make sense to people? Do you know what I mean by that? So you're
when you refer to that thing that you did, you're referring to a mistake or something that you've interpreted as a mistake.
Yeah, or something that you did that didn't work that you're taking response. Like, let's say it's not a mistake, but it's just something you
Just didn't work out.
Or yeah, just taking responsibility for, I don't know why this is coming up, but I was doing a seminar one time, and it was like the beginning of me doing seminars, and there were about 30 women at this seminar, and I don't know, could have been this seminar. I can't remember the title, but I remember in the beginning, I was trying to build rapport with people and whatever, and my stool fell over, and like everything got really messed up, and I said something that was really confusing, and like I looked in the audience, and all the women were in like some kind of a deep trance. And I was like, okay, I was trying to explain something, I remember now, and I was so complex that everybody just went into confusion. And then so I started to go into self-blame. I started to go into like, oh my God, I'm doing a terrible job. I don't know how to do this. They're not gonna like this seminar. They're not gonna like me. I'm gonna fail. All those great internal dialogue things. And then I said, well, wait a second, Beverlee. Like, so I kind of interrupted the whole litany of things. And I said, what's your intention? And it was like, well, my intention is to teach them this. So instead of this long thing I was going to say, I just said, like, okay, I went down a wrong path, or I went down a path that didn't work. What I really just wanted to express to you is this. And I just said it in one sentence. I picked up the stool and I started again, and I was able to have a good seminar. But it could have really gone the other way. And in my life, it has gone the other way at other times. So I'm just saying rectify. So the way out is rectify if you can with the thing that you're upset about. And if you can't rectify it with the thing or the person, then you start to bring it into your life, and it begins to shift your idea about yourself. So thanks, Cherise. The fact that I gave you that task helped me relax enough to be able to remember the word. So mistake. So I have found in a lot of studies that a lot of successful people have said that if they could change one thing in their life, they would have let themselves fail more. I really, have you heard that? Have you guys heard that before? Because I really am asking you to take it in. So what I talk about are mistakes. Mistakes are like really a mistake. So like my vision is, I see it like a movie being made, and they say, take one. And then they do the movie and they're going like, not so great. Take two. Okay, could be better. So take three. And so like mistakes are like a mistake of a movie that you just do the scene again, and you just add or subtract the things that you think weren't that useful or powerful. So mistake is just like, just take it again.
My husband actually has a great phrase for that he can invoke for either one or both of us. We plan, we put our heads together, we collaborate, we take the action, and it didn't work. I mean, it just flat out totally did not work. And Ted insists, he says, look, that was just another really great idea that didn't work. it doesn't mean it wasn't a good idea. You know, he refuses to invalidate the thinking and the creativity and the planning.
I love
went
that.
into it just because we didn't get the outcome.
Yeah, I love that. Kudos to him, and kudos to you for taking it on and using it and acknowledging it. So
it's such a relief, you know, when I let it in.
Yeah.
Instead of it just being kind of a cutesy, clever saying, and meanwhile inside I'm still going, yeah, well, that was fucked up, you know. to let go of that piece and go, yeah, we did good work, we did good thinking, we did good collaborating, and that stays true whether it got us where we hoped it would get us or planned for it to get us or not.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of reframing, and that's part of why I'm asking you, even the part of you that went that's fucked up, what I'd love to do is reframe that part as, wow, that's a part of you that really wants to make sure you have a great life, you know, and that is trying to do it by, like, you know, like that thing that Stephen says, like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Like that part of you that's like, okay, I fucked up. I need to know that so I can do it better the next time, so I can have a good life, right? So you want to even, that's the beauty of this part, this work to me is, you know, someone was talking about radical acceptance in a way. So even seeing, just as he is seeing the beauty in the idea, I'm asking you to see the beauty in the part of you that went like, that's fucked up, or that, you know, whatever, is like, oh, that's a part of me that really wants to make sure that I'm gonna have a good life. You know, it doesn't mean the strategy works, but you have to give some points to intention.
I mean, to me, in a way, it's the shadow side. I mean, it's because it comes to the same place, which is, well, that was really fucked up. We have to come up with something else. But
yes,
but Ted's ability to help me laugh at it,
right.
Ted's ability to go, well, that was fucked up. What do we do next? You know, it's
I get it.
an acknowledgement and a validation, but a completely different frame around it. It's like it's not a characterological
exactly.
It wasn't a waste of time. It doesn't mean we can't get there. You know, it's just, yeah, well, welcome to being human, man. You know, we screw up all the time.
Yeah.
And just opening up a lot of acceptance around that. So
I love it.
I guess what I was saying was that works for me when I'm not dismissive of the frame that he's putting on it. You know, when I don't insist on sticking with my.
I hear you loud and clear. So it's like, so we're very, and that's part of the frame we put on things often either has a blaming frame or a self-blaming frame. So I'm asking us to do what Ted does with the other things as well, is oh, I just went like, oh, I fucked up. What if I had a positive intention behind that? What if I was just really trying to succeed and have a good life, you know? So for me, that also I don't even want to dismiss the part of us that says, oh, I fucked up, or, oh, I'm not good enough, or whatever. You know, when I'm presenting and I have, like, you know, if I'm presenting, which I never have, in my head, if I'm presenting to a room of older male psychiatrists, in my mind, I have a lot of self-blame and negative self-talk, you know, but you know, and that could lead me to being nervous. But the other thing is that if I realize, like, hey, you just want to succeed here, it gives me a different frame again to be a little kinder and more self-loving. So so does anybody have any questions? So for someone who wasn't gonna just talk and do a lecture, I just did an hour. So Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to share about this? And does anybody need a pee break? Because it's an hour. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So-
I have a question.
Yeah.
I probably will ask it after break. If you don't.
Okay. Okay. So 5 minutes, is that enough? Is that too long? 5 minutes. I'll see
Yeah.
you back in 5 minutes.
Is the recording of this going to be available for the people that couldn't make it tonight?
Yes. Is
Thanks to Oksana. Does
I
mine
think tomorrow we will post it on YouTube channel. I'm also thinking about to do it as a podcast too. I mean, just audio too, because I know that Richard's CM radios, people are listening and they are uploading them. Beverlee, it's extremely interesting. I just want to express my gratitude for this you're sharing with people.
Thank you, sweetie.
I could see Oksana think about all the possibilities of doing this group, and then in this group we were going to put all the people that are going to put the idealized visions, and then another group. I could see you work in your head, Oksana.
It's just really, I'm so glad that we have this so much to share with people, and I'm just thinking, how can we do this work available? I mean, that more people could be involved.
Yes, I think about that as well. And I also am like thinking about, I'm wanting to build a bigger, like a Zoom community that includes just people that aren't necessarily working with this kind of work, more into the world, the general population. Because it's so needed and it's so fulfilling to have this level of contact, and this level of contact that has something positive to say. My thing is, I'm not really sure how to market it, and I feel comfortable, doing it. I feel like I have this is like I have a series of seminars, and this has been one of them. I haven't given the seminar in about 10 years. But I do have a series of stuff. So but even just people coming together, talking about how they feel, how they're dealing with things. I'm going to just skip to the loo, which I never knew what that song was when I was a kid. But
I'll be back.
How are you, Isa?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Not happy with this Corona thing that is coming back, and with I understand the measures, and I can get that we need to be very careful and so forth. It's the way here in Belgium they present the news is so conflicting all the time that you go like, what are you guys actually saying? Like, yesterday you said that we were okay, we are 20% lower than what we were in March and so forth and so forth. And now you're saying today that we are kind of like way over what was in March. And so it gets me frustrated and angry. And I don't understand. And then I go to, what are they trying to make out of us? And the fact that we cannot hug people anymore. My son came to visit today, and he said, "No, Mom, don't hug me. I'm working outside, and I don't know." And I go like, "No, I can't do that. Like, not hugging my own son because you're living somewhere else, and that's too much for me."
So you're gonna have a self-hug then?
Yeah. Or my dog, I take my dog and I go, "Oh, I love you so much." Good thing that he's there.
It is interesting how people are dealing with this, and talk about blame. I feel like people are being very judgmental about how everybody's handling it differently. You know, like there's that people are really handling this quite differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people
Definitely.
judge other people for being too permissive, and then people judge people for being too uptight.
Exactly.
All right. So we don't know Achim and Graciela. We're not really sure if you're back or not, but we'll just wait for Zarko and then we'll continue.
Achim is back.
Hey,
Hey,
hey. Let's hear that gong. Is that gong real?
You have to unmute yourself.
Oh,
Okay. It's not always working to Zoom. Let's find out if you can hear it.
yeah, it worked. I don't know if it was a good representation of it, but it was certainly powerful.
Do you have neighbors? Do you often do that? Like your neighbors, they must love you.
Well, it's not that late, so 8 o'clock, that's okay.
8 o'clock is a good enough time to gong.
Yep.
Well, let's just start with if anybody has anything to say, anything to ask.
I just, in the last conversation we had, this subject was about, in my head I was thinking about why can't I look at life more like I look at cooking? Where I'm really happy to experiment and throw things in and see, oh, does this work? And if it doesn't, it's okay. And I'm happy to make mistakes without getting too caught up about it and thinking, oh, I wouldn't get there, I wouldn't find these recipes if I wouldn't just mix things up and be relaxed about it and not blame. And and I wrote down, in life, just treat it more like cooking.
I love that. See, and I love that about this work, that if you can have an experience of something, even for a second, you can bring that into the rest of your life. So I love that. And when are we all coming over for a good meal?
Anytime.
So let's hear about some of your life recipes in the future. It is really interesting because, like, think about the ease and the fun and the possibilities of creation, and then we believe me, I'm such a good freezer. Like fight, flight, freezer, fold. I'm an excellent like shaker and freezer. So I remember one of my coming to California, studying all of this. I went to a Gestalt group in the beginning, and then so like you take something you're hiding, right, and you express it. So I'm like in this group, and my hands are out, and I'm like shaking, and I'm like inside, I'm thinking like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this is like so California. So so in the opposite of what I find sometimes, I mean, doing trance work for this is really great, and helping your I won't even say it with that tone, it's really great and helps you to be able to sit down and learn from how you cook to cook. Maybe you have to just think of everything as a recipe and cooking. Like, how do I put these things together? That's what the whole process of creative mind is, right? It's like putting together ingredients that in a different way and coming up with a new kind of dish at the end of it. Anyway, so that's great. That's really great. So I did want to say something else, and I'm not remembering what it was. Anyway, again, that's what's important. It'll come up again. So, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Anybody else have questions? Anything they want to share? Anything they want to ask about?
So I have a question about self-esteem. Do you think there are people who really have like a very high, I mean, not very even healthy high level of self-esteem, so it's like raised it up a lot more than the person in reality can achieve or can do, or value for society, or it's just those people who behave themselves like their self-esteem is really high, really inside they still don't feel themselves very confident. What is your opinion about that?
I think it goes back to that image that I showed you at the beginning of the seminar, that I think if people disassociate with their more vulnerable parts, or the parts of them that aren't as celebrated in our society, like, it's just starting now, which I love, and it's being vulnerable, and Brene Brown is helping with that, but just all this work, this whole Stephen's work, the N.L.P work. Well, N.L.P is a mixed bag for me, but it's mixed in the sense that in the beginning I met a lot of people that only showed the raw, I'm so confident, let's be powerful, let's sell power here. But it's changing, and the people that really feel powerful to us, I think, really are the ones who can embrace all of themselves and then still act. Mm-hmm. And I think when you see a raw person, you there's a few ways I can answer this. I think we feel that they're not connected to all of themselves. So there's like a less of a trust, there's less of a relaxation of our guard with them. I think we know, I think they know on some level, unless there's a biochemical imbalance. I think they know, I even think, Mr. Trump, there's a part of me that feels really compassionate towards him, because I can see him hysterically trying to, be his breast and be great and match up, to, I'm sure, his way before Mary Trump's book, to his father's expectations. I mean, that was my feeling when I first saw him, period, before he was even president. So, but it doesn't sit well when someone's trying to oversell themselves, which I have done. Did anybody here ever try and oversell yourself, or raw your confidence, or what? Who, me do that? So even as I get older, even this year, even with Creative Mind, I would say, even doing that, I feel like I allow myself to go deeper and deeper into allowing myself to be everything that I am, and then acting from that. And I can't always do it. Even the end of the last session I did, I moved away from myself a little bit towards the end of the session. I mean, not too much, not for too long, but I felt it. I felt like I wasn't there in my deepest authentic self, and I didn't love that. I didn't love that part of it, but it happens. So it is that, Aikido thing that Stephen talks about just always finding a way. It's not that we're not going to get off center. It's just how quickly can you notice it, and I think have a habit of going back to center. So the answer, Oksana, is I don't really buy that people are just confident. I really buy that they're likely to be. In some other training I have, people, there's some personality types that are trained to, as a kid, to be strong and not feel. And I think when you're brought up with that demand, it's hard for you to admit the other parts of you. But it's not as people that have that aren't as they aren't experienced as trustworthy as people who are willing to be confident and not confident at the same time. So does that answer it? Does that answer it for you?
Yes, it is. It does. Thank you. I have another one, but maybe I will give a possibility to other participants ask.
Well, does anybody have a question they're burning to ask right now? I'm happy to hear.
I have one, but I can wait after you,
Okay.
Oksana. Go ahead.
Okay, Oksana, go twice. What
Thank
the hell?
you for this possibility. So I think it goes together with the first one. So do you think this strategy of blaming, it could be, you know, only external orient, or it's always like it goes always external and inner orient? I mean, they are people.
I think there's people that blame externally, you know, as their default way that they go. It's the other person's fault.
That's what I mean. For example, you're doing couple therapy, right? And for example, wife, she's always blaming her husband, so he is guilty in everything, and in all argues, she will turn frame around, so, and put things that it was his fault, for example, that they argued or they failed in something, so it was his fault.
Yeah.
But do you think it's necessary that she will have this inner strategy of blaming herself? I mean, when she's by herself only, or she's thinking about herself, or there are cases that she will not blame herself, it's only his.
I think that there's cases where people don't blame themselves. So, but that is a funny thing that you're saying, because I do a lot of couple counseling, and this is how I start couple counseling. I say that, so there's two people sitting on a couch, and I say, look, I say that how couple counseling starts is, whether you're doing it in actuality or not, both people are really pointing to the other person, and at least in your head saying, if only this other person would change, then my life could be fabulous. I mean, that's how it starts. And it's that way for me too. I think that if only everybody else changed, my life could be fabulous. I mean, it's hard for me to not think that, you know, that's my go-to. Then I have to, you know, so then when I start like that, the thing that's nice is it normalizes it, and then it kind of also brings playfulness into it, you know. So it's like, I don't even know who you are, and I'm going to tell you that this is what's going on. So also it's not even personal. So then it becomes more digestible for people, because I'm not calling them out, I'm calling humans out. And so, but if it was somebody, that I was already working with, then I would probably say, look, I'm sure they do a whole bunch of things that don't work. And I would probably talk a little bit about a system, like, you know, it a little bit takes two to tango, and, you know, what can you see that you might be doing something that let's say, because a big source of stuff with couples can be like, who you started. It's like the kids in the back of the car. He started it, so you could say, look, whoever started it, because the story is usually different depending on the person. It's like, is there something that you do that might exacerbate it, or is there something you could do that might maybe interrupt the pattern, because you could just, for me, you could just frame it in the sense of, to the woman, let's say you want to feel empowered. So if you just feel like this is my theme, this is a little bit, everything's related, so I'll just talk about it like that. So when I listened to Julian's presentation, and he said something, and I really want to hear what he said, but I was working with a part of me that's this little girl that's not confident, and I've worked with her for 40 years, or 42 years, consciously, in all different ways. He said something about, are you willing to give up being a victim? And I really got it. Like, do I sometimes act like a victim? I do. Is it my general way of being? Not. But I do it. I am a victim of things, and not that I believe that I am, but I have that story sometimes, right? So I realized I was holding this young part of me as a victim. I needed to change her. I needed to help her. I needed to, and it felt like, I don't know if you guys have an experience of this. I have some stuff that seals granite, and it's a bottle, and it has a bottle cap on it. And on top of the bottle cap is another cap that makes sure that probably kids can't go into it, right? So it's a cap on a cap. And I felt like for 42 years of working with this part and holding this part like a victim, I didn't even realize I was doing it. Like, oh, poor little one. She's like, she's so disempowered. She's like so, and I went like, oh, she's not a victim. And I felt like I took that outer cap off. And she was no longer, that part of me was no longer constrained in that place. And I felt so much freedom that I had it. So I really do have to thank Julian and write him. So I felt like so much freedom, and I really felt that part now could more easily integrate with the rest of me, where unknowingly, by treating that part like this poor little disempowered part of me that doesn't know how to be confident, that was what kept her stuck. So then I started to look at all the different ways I was holding myself as a victim. Because then when I'm not a victim, right, then I'm free, and I'm in that coach state, and I have connection to all resources, and I'm living in the present, and and everything is possible. So I started to do that with lots of things. Like, I can't even remember, but it's like, as soon as I didn't like something, I would say, like, and I could say that about our president, like, am I really a victim of his? And then if I can take my way out of being a victim, am I really a victim of the fires that were here? Am I really a victim because my friend did something that I didn't like? Am I really a victim? And I started to find all kinds of freedom. So if you can somehow share that with your client, that it's more empowering for her to find the things that she can take responsibility for, and that she can do, and that it's more empowering for her than feeling like that she is the effect of how he is. I think that can be powerful. I don't know. I think I'm a little off the subject, but I'm sure somewhere it's related.
Thank you for sharing. It's really interesting and useful.
Thanks. Okay, so Isa, what was your question that could wait?
Well, I'm a professional self-blamer.
Oh, good. Well, you may as well be, good at whatever you do.
And I'm really good at it.
Oh, good.
I do it really. I'm a very professional self-blamer. And the thing is that, yes, the problem I have sometimes is that when how could I explain this? When I don't hear from people, or if they don't call me back, or don't, like we don't have a relationship for some times because of this or that, I will always tell myself, what did I do wrong, or what did I say wrong, which makes it so that they do not call me, or they don't write to me, or they don't come back to me, or don't see me, or, oh, what did I do wrong and now they don't love me anymore? That's the biggest one. And as I'm talking and as I'm sitting here listening to you, I know what you're going to say and I know how to get about it. But it's really infuriating me, because it sometimes make me think that people don't like me, or don't see me, or don't love me, because I think I did something wrong, where not at all. These people are busy, these people are doing things, these people are in their life actions and so forth, and maybe they don't have time, but I always will think that I am the one who did something wrong.
Just out of curiosity, does anybody else here ever do anything like that? I'm going to raise my hand.
Read a lot about it, but
So, first of all, I'd be so curious what you think I'm going to say, because you said I know what you're going to say about it.
Well, the whole thing that you have been telling up until now, I mean, take this part and love it, and give yourself some self-love.
Well, what is that part? What is that part concerned about? First of all, what does that part really care about when you're saying, like, did I do something wrong? Is there something I did? What is that part really want for you?
There's a couple of things, but the big main thing is not to be loved, or not to be or to be taken as a crazy one, which very often I think
but what does that part want for you?
To be seen, to be loved, and to be heard, and all these things.
So the thing that I'm saying to you that is part of this work is there's a difference between intention and strategy. So you want to just appreciate the intention behind it. The strategies we learned when we were 5 and 6 and 4 and 3 and 8, and we took it from a menu that was quite limited at the time, right? You took the best possible thing on the menu you could pick, and so first of all, you want to even be excited about that, because you were looking for a strategy that could possibly work for you. So the strategy you came up with was like, well, if I keep looking at myself and what I did, maybe I could have the love and the closeness that I could do. At this adult age, we're then able to look at, well, how well is that strategy really looking? Could I add? Because, there's something good about that strategy to look at, to see if you did something that didn't work, that in a relationship, when someone doesn't call you back, it's a useful thing. It's just that we use our strategies even when they don't work. You know what I mean? So like all our strategies are useful in some context. So I think it's really useful. I don't, Oksana was talking about a client who maybe doesn't ask that question, and if she would, her life would probably be better, So it's useful in some areas. It's just that we get like dramatic and technicolor about everything that we do. You know, I did a workshop that I loved. I participated called the Forum. And what the thing I liked the most, even though I knew it, I just like the way they talk about it, is they talk about there's what happens or what happened. And then there's our story about what happens and what happened. And the implication is that most of the time in our life, we're living in our story and not in the present and not at all in what's happening, but we're living in our story and we're reacting to our story. So most of the time, we are not at all in present tense. So it's good to know, something that I find is really freeing is it's good to know, like, what story am I telling myself? And to kind of, that can have the ability of helping you a little bit unattached to the story. Like at least you're seeing it. Okay, I'm telling a story. When we believe what we're saying is when we get in trouble. So in my shaman training, the shaman woman says everything that you say is not true. Everything you say to yourself is not true. That's how they start. So I'm not telling you to buy into that or anything. I'm just giving you an example of that. In some of my training, every single thing you say to yourself is not true. So I'll give you an example. I go on Vision Quest every year, and one year, for some reason, because usually we can't come back to base camp unless there's some really emergency or something. But this time, because of something, we were supposed to come back midway. And I came back and I said to the shaman woman, look, you know, there's a house I was trying to buy. I'm concerned about John, who's the guy in my life's health. If I could just make a phone call to him for 30 seconds, I can find out about the house. I can find out if he's okay, and I can relax. Can I do that? And she looked at me and and I said, that's it, and then I'll be fine. She looked at me and she goes, Beverlee, that's what you do. So I was like, what? And then she was like, you worry about things. And I said, oh, I do. I worry about things. And the thing is that I worry about things, and that's my protection, you know. I mean, part of my culture is, I don't think these are the only people that worry. And part of my culture is Jewish. So like we worry about things so that we won't be killed ultimately. It's a big strategy, but we certainly don't have the corner of the market of that strategy. But what I realized is when I was worrying and having all my thoughts, I was believing my thoughts. I was like thinking, oh, I was intuiting it, or I was something, like I was taking my thoughts seriously. Now when I could just go like, oh, I worry, and I worry to protect myself. I don't worry to be mean to myself or to make myself miserable. I worry because I think if I can think about every possible eventuality in my life, then I can have a good life and I can be safe, you know? So I'm doing it for positive intentions, but it's not the best strategy. And I'm telling myself stories. She was saying, you're on a vision quest, everything's fine. You know, like nothing bad's going to happen. Everything that's there is supposed to be there. This is what you do. Look at it, basically. She didn't even say look at it, but she was just said, this is what you do. So just having that, just knowing about story. Oh, there's my story again, without like, and maybe framing it in a way that doesn't have blame, because then again, I always take everything on myself. I always think I'm the one that did everything. What? So that's like blaming yourself for blaming yourself. And those are the kind of blames that we sometimes don't see, because like, oh no, this blame is justified, right? So if you go to a seminar and you learn to be in coach state, and then you're not using coach state, we often don't look at like, we look at it like as a righteous thing from the workshop. Well, we're supposed to be in coach state, so we're supposed to blame ourselves if we're not in coach state. Like there's like different logical levels of blame that we have. So I'm just saying, it's good to be aware of them, and it's good to be aware of our story. So like I have clients now trying to become aware of, so what's your story about that? So especially in couples, because, you know, Oksana, if you do couple counseling, you know that it's a joke. Like, you know, like I know John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. But we are like in different planets. It does not, when you hear the stories from the two people, even the ones, you know, even us, even we're trying to be so conscious and so aware and so responsible. I don't even have people look for what really happened anymore. Like it's such an irrelevant fight. It only matters like, what's your story about? What's your story about it? And what do you want? And how can you go towards what you want? Because our ability to be present and really see what's there. I mean, there's a whole long question about physics and what is really there, but let's not go there for this particular moment. But you know, we really live in our stories and build our realities and our reactions and our responses from our stories much more from, if you can imagine being in coach state, which is the way I could talk about it here, and opening to what is, and then using what is to make a new recipe often. You know, so we do that very rarely. That to me is the goal, is to, you know, but be sweet when you be sweet. Know that it's like such a human thing to notice that you have a story. And often, unfortunately, the stories we tell ourselves are not great for our side. I don't usually find people over saying, oh, they loved me. I mean, except for Trump, but you know what I mean? Someone who's real but telling a story. We usually don't err on the side of like, oh, that went really well, I made a couple of mistakes. Oksana, one of the things that you were talking about with self-esteem, by the way, that I wanted to say is that I really think there's a big thing about self-esteem and what the N.L.P people used to talk about, matching and mismatching. I don't know if they still use that language. Do they? So I really have people practice for self-esteem, by the way. So you know, the thing about matching is there's 10 items that you said you're going to do that day, and you do 9, and the person who matches goes like, yeah, I did 9 out of 10. And the person that mismatches goes like, oh shit, I didn't do that one. And I can't believe I didn't like get to finishing all 10, and I promised I would, and blah, 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 that whole thing. And that, so I have people in teaching them how to have self-esteem, get into the habit, because these to me are habits and strategies. Write down 10 things a day that you liked about what you did, and or that you accomplished. I don't care if brushing your teeth is one of them, because I want to have people get into the habit of noticing what they did that was good, or noticing what they accomplished, or noticing anything that they could have as a measurement of being able to feel good about themselves. Again, and again, to just go back to Oksana a little bit, for some reason, if a person is too identified with the lesser vision, Isa, from what I was talking about, and gives the idealized vision attributes away to others, that's not a good plan. So you want to start to notice, and often, by the way, I will notice when I'm counseling people or coaching them that if I say to people, what are traits that people have that you really admire, and we make a list of it, And then I go down a list with the person, but I don't tell them I'm going to do this before. If I go down the list of everything of what they admire in other people, and I say, well, what do you like on a scale of 1 to 10 in this regard, you know? And I go down the list. That really often the people are pretty high on all the things that they really admire in other people. So it's a little bit of an awakening for people to notice that they are. And then if you're low on one of the things, like if you're low on integrity, for example, then the useful thing about doing that is that then that's what they get to work on. If it's that important to them that they respect somebody who has that, and they're only a 5 out of 10, then great. That's what you get to work on, is more of your integrity, or more of your confidence, or more of your relaxation, or more of your spontaneity, or more, whatever it is, more of your generosity. So, yeah.
I just want to throw in something about what I know about my own habits of telling myself scary, unhelpful stories, and just noticing that how much stronger the pull to do that is in situations where I have so few facts. I mean, one of the big problems to me about silence, you know, you extend yourself to someone else and you get nothing back, is it's completely ambiguous. There's no way to interpret it at all. And yet we are compulsive meaning makers. We're always trying to make sense of our experience. So you work with what you've got, and that's you. You know, it's like, well, I don't know what's going on with them, but maybe I did something. You know, I mean, that's just such a familiar response to me. And Beverlee, you connecting that with, look, these are strategies we came up with when not only was the menu limited, but I mean, we didn't know anything about the world, or we didn't have any power, you know, we were 5 or whatever. So we were heroic for coming up with a strategy that got us through whatever that was. And I find for myself, sometimes way after the fact, I don't recognize it in the moment, but that what happens in those moments of, I don't have any evidence to explain what's going on to here. And now I feel like that 5-year-old who not only has such a narrow, limited body of resources to work with, but for whom it's life and death. If I can't get the big people to love me and see me and pay attention to me,
absolutely,
I'll die. You know? So I get totally disconnected from the grown-up who doesn't need that in order to survive.
Absolutely.
You know, and to just say, kiddo, it's okay. The good news today is I'm the big person in your life. And I'm not going anywhere. You know, it's like, you got me. You can't get rid of me. I love you no matter what, you know?
Yeah.
But I joke with clients sometimes about, you know, so many of us clients talk about it a lot, about how terrified they are of the unknown. But I just don't know. I just don't know. If only I could figure out. If only I could figure out. I'm like, look, this is an occasion where we can lean into the comfort and reassurance of not knowing. It's like,
yeah.
I don't know what's going on with that person.
Yeah.
I can lean into that, and that can feel good to me instead of terrifying and destabilizing, because
I love that. I love
there's
that.
so much I don't know. I can take comfort in the fact that I just don't know what's going on, and I won't know till I find out, you know, till I hear from them or I ask them. And that's not mutually exclusive with that thing of, well, let me run through a checklist. The last time we talked, did I maybe stick my foot in it or say something insensitive? But whereas the kid gets stuck in, because I got to make it right. The adult can go, no, I ran my checklist and really I was fine. I showed up with integrity and friendliness and openness. And so I don't really, now if they had some experience I don't know about, then it's on them to tell me about it. But I've checked myself out, and I think I showed up okay. So we'll just have to see, you know. Who came up with does it come from N.L.P, that those 2 questions about what do I know and how do I know it?
I don't know.
What you actually know not think or speculate or
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah, I don't know those questions.
And to
Stella,
say,
are you saying,
I know
are you
this.
saying it does come from NLP?
I don't know.
You're shaking your head.
Yeah,
They
at
are
least
in
at
NLP, yeah. They are questions in NLP like that,
Yeah.
but maybe in other
Yeah, to
approaches.
just like verify it. I mean, I worked with lawyers for 10 years and I've been married to a lawyer who's not lawyering anymore for 20. So we laugh about, what's your evidentiary basis for that conclusion? It's like, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence that I screwed something up? You know, where is
the thing that I love about all those things is that what they are is, you know, what Stephen called sponsorship, is us coming in. So it's like that thing of we're not going back in the past to our little selves that have no resources. We're asking our little selves to come forward in the present where we have so many different resources and strategies to offer. And that what you're saying are all like wonderful ways of coming in and doing interrupting the pattern of how Stephen talks about it as what do you do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Which is all to me about I want to have a good life. You know? So, and then interrupting it. So if you interrupt it with, I don't know, or if you, you know, I don't know, and it's okay to not know. And did I do something? If you interrupt it by, I'm telling myself a story. It's just my story, like it has nothing, you know. I like to, I like one interruption for me, and a bringing. It's an interruption, but also a bringing in of resources. In that particular case, Isa, for example, is I remember years ago, like really, it's like in the 1980s, but a friend of mine was gonna do, I was gonna have an operation, and a friend of mine was gonna do some hypnotic work with me to see if I could do something and not have to have the surgery. So she was doing me a favor, and it was for free. So she was doing me a favor, and I was driving there and I was late. And it was when I was probably doing my dissertation on self-blame. So I was like blaming myself and hard on myself, and I was late, and then I was like, wait a second, Beverlee. First of all, is this, you're going for healing? Is this healing for you? And the answer was no. And then I said, what's your worst fear? Which also was a conversation, right? So now I'm interrupting the pattern because I'm coming to myself, like trying to look for facts, Charisse, in a way. So saying, you know, what am I afraid of? What's the biggest thing that I'm like having this, like, oh my God, I'm late. What's my biggest fear? My biggest fear was to lose her friendship. Like now she's doing me this big favor and I'm going to be late. And it was extreme, but that was my fear, was that she would not find me worthy to be her friend after this great offering. And then I said, well, could you live without her friendship and be okay? And I said, yeah, I can. And so detaching that way from the drama I was having, that I needed, you know, I needed her love, I needed her friendship. Could I be okay if she wasn't my friend? And the answer was yes. And then I could relax, and the fact that I wasn't attached anymore to like needing her friendship in order to be okay was enough of an interruption to get off the self-blame. So it was, because again, the self-blame was my attempt at trying to make sure I was a good person so I could have good friends, so I could have a good life. So there's so many ways to have a good life, but we attach to one particular thing at the time, that we need this particular thing, we need this particular person, we need this particular thing to happen in order to have a good life, which is, you know, definitely neuromuscular lock. So most of self-blame is neuromuscular lock, except for, Charisse, you had an example of something that said, well, did I do something that wasn't great? You know, which I think is I think that is self-responsibility, self-blame in coach state. So that's what I'm inviting, you know, and certainly, you know, it was an option for me to do you know, an exercise where we experience self-blame out of self-lock, but I enjoyed having the conversation and still do. So we have a couple of more minutes. Anybody else that hasn't said anything would like to ask a question or make a statement or?
I have a question.
Oh, wait. Stella,
No,
we're going to have Stella go first. Okay, Oksana?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I just want to say that I love the how you word the things and how you describe the story to us. So I really love the way you are verbalizing the thing, and I'm so thrilled with all the messages that are coming back. So I'm blank with questions, and I'm glad that Oksana has questions. Or comments.
Can I ask you just briefly, because it's interesting for me, what kind of things are you liking hearing, or in a way that you're hearing it, just so I have some content?
I mean, I think
you don't have to.
Yeah, I know. I think it's the whole set, starting from the caterpillar, which is a good metaphor, which kind of opened quite a lot of thinking in my head, and going back with the different parts. Obviously, they are very well established in your dissertation, but actually reframing them on the way we are getting them sucked into our system. So I think that is the way. And I mean, especially when you're just going wild without having the watch in mind. I love that.
Good, thank you. Thanks, Mila. Okay, Oksana, what did you want to ask?
Will it be continued?
Will this be continued, this particular subject?
I mean, are you planning to do more meetings, or your workshop, or your Zoom community, or what do we have in future?
Now there's a good question. I'll say, if there's interest, I will do more. I will do more. I will do more. What's helpful for me is if people also give me feedback about what they're interested in, because I am the most inspired by just being in front of somebody who has a need or a curiosity or something. That I like to do that more than anything. I just present subjects as an excuse to start that kind of conversation. You know,
I have a comment too. I think that I took some notes for myself, and what was most helpful for me, that every time that you tell story, I kind of write the story to myself about what is, you know, what I think about myself. Do I think highly about myself, or do I blame myself for everything? Now, for what's the things is that you blame myself, and why is that I blame myself for those kind of things, and how they are different from these many things which I don't blame myself. Like I don't blame myself, for example, if somebody doesn't call me. I always say it's their loss, period. That's it. It's clear to me, because I have good opinion about them being in contact with me. So if they are not, it's just their loss. So I don't have problem with that, but there are other things. And finally, when you said that we should learn about it, and I mean the things which I blame myself, two things in particular, what it is that I can learn from that, and immediately it came the answers to that. And they are quite abstract answers. They are not connected actually. Well, they are connected deeply what I blame myself for, or if I feel guilty about. But they are on much higher level than those things for which I blame myself. So it is so very helpful, you know, listen to you and kind of at the same time construct and review my own life. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You know, we definitely are triggered by things that have things to do with our childhood and our past. And I would pose to you that whatever story you're telling yourself that's not necessarily so positive is trying to work out a strategy for you to have love and respect, and certainly for you to survive, and for you to have a good life. And you know, you really, I really want to invite you to picture yourself as little kids with this very limited menu of trying to pick out what's the best of like what's being offered to me to try and figure out how to live a life. You know, is it being suspicious of people? Is it worrying? Is it telling, you know, is it like emphasizing stories? Is it like being the jester? Is it being very serious and accomplishing? I mean, we have so many strategies that we came up with. The last thing I'm going to say about that is that I knew, but also this workshop that I took that Stephen also has taken. We didn't do it all together, called the Forum. It puts that into words I also like, which is they call it your winning formula. Like you know, somehow worrying helped you in your life, and somehow, you know, for me, part of my winning formula is being funny, is being wise, is being nice, is being generous, is being like, you know, creative, is being stylish and cool. I mean, those are all like my winning formulas that I came up with in my family. But the problem with winning formulas is when you use them even when they're not appropriate. So so it's just another, and again, it has nothing to do with self-blame, but it has to do with life, is that if we are, so just be aware of that, because then if I'm nervous, I can start telling entertaining stories, but I'm not in my coach state. I'm not centered, so they don't quite work as well. But it's like I'm trying to look into my grab bag about what works, because I'm not feeling comfortable. Or maybe I'll try and be too nice or too generous or too wise, or everything I named for you that is part of my winning formula helped me in my profession and helped me do what I most love in the world. So it's been great. But on the other hand, when I use it when it's not appropriate, it works against me. So even my strengths, when not expressed in coach state, are failed strategies in general. I do not get what I want from them. You know, so it's just awareness. It's just, I can sometimes be in the middle of doing that and I can't even stop because I don't know where to go. I just can't find center, you know, I just can't find it strongly enough. But anyway, that's we're just, you know, it's just more of like, what do I do? Right? So, but you want to, so the idea is, when you notice you're blaming yourself, I invite you to connect with the inner intention underneath that. You're not, I have not been with anyone who's blaming themselves, and there might be a person in the world, but who's blaming themselves because they really want to be mean or they really don't want them to succeed. I really see it's a part of them that wants good for themselves, that's scared, that's trying to motivate or protect, or to give feedback so that we can be better. And so see if you can be sweet with yourself, even not blaming yourself for blaming yourself is what I'm not even blaming yourself for blaming yourself for blaming yourself. So, and just knowing that, you know, there's sweetness, there's really sweetness between all of this in a world of not knowing. If you can imagine, this little kid doesn't know which way is up, but it's like, let me just take on whatever here, you know, so I can maybe survive and live a life. It's such a valiant attempt that we do as children, and we're still doing as adults. We're still trying to do it in a world of not knowing. We're still trying to like see if we can find the rules or the ways or the like to be enough, to know enough, to whatever. And you know, so what I'm really noticing more than ever is that we really need practices to practice coach state. We really need to do that more and more often, and build a practice to keep coming back to it, because that's kind of for me the answer more than anything. So for me also meditating or doing art or doing whatever kind of helps you unrile your nervous system. So really our nervous systems are riled, and during COVID and during Trump and during Putin and during Xi and all the stuff that's going on, we're swimming in waters of being riled, and our survival and our values are being destabilized, let's say. So we really need to work hard, I believe. My story is that it would be useful for us to work hard to find ways to find the peace and the silence that's underneath the riling, uncertain times. And we're also changing now. So it's like, you know, we are the caterpillar in the cocoon going, what the F is going on, you know? And we don't know where we're going to land. And I do think that our intention of what we want and using our resources and our strategies and practicing breathing and being connected to our depth and our width and to whatever other wisdoms are here, we really need to do that now, and we really need to share it with each other, you know. And so I'm finding a lot. So let's just end like this. I'm finding a lot of relaxation in being around nature, like, and it could be being in the city but seeing a butterfly or a flower, and my nervous system is going like, oh yeah, or really having an authentic connection with somebody. Those are the two things that are really helping me now. Anybody else want to share what things are helping them kind of find that center or coach in this world right now?
Being around children and nature. Being around children and nature and music.
Great, thank you. Also, a great part of this work is really taking in what people say. So let yourself do that. Let yourself really be healed a little bit and soothed a little bit by what everybody else is doing, or seeing if it fits, you know. Try it on to see if it fits in. Anyone else? No, anybody have anything? I think it's good.
Reading, reading really nice, interesting books, maybe books which I already read many years ago, but which I love. Just reading at the point when the voice of the author started to sound inside, and it's really this centered state of connection.
That sounds beautiful. Anybody else?
For me, it's candlelight, like candles, and then doing really craft works where you don't have to focus so much. But
Right.
Nature as well, and what was a highlight in the last months was starting baking bread.
Great. Great. See, I do want to come over for dinner. So anyone else? Last dibs on sharing. So this is just reminding me, there was a time when I was doing I have a tendency when I do seminars to design them like the night before. I mean, I think unconsciously I'm working on them for months when I know I'm going to do it, but I really only do it like last minute. And I was doing a seminar on spirituality. It's time to wake up, and you know, at the time I was spirituality was like the center of everything in my life and my studies and my life. And I had studied with Maharishi, and I was meditating all the time. I was teaching people. I wanted to meet a man who was spiritual, and I moved to California to be around people who were spiritual. And then I was doing this class, and I was going like, what is spirituality? You know, like my whole life is like dedicated to this thing, and I don't even know really what it is. And I realized that night that it was about connection, that it was connection. You made me think of it, Oksana, because it was connection to a good book. It was connection to a person. It was connection to a value that was deep. It was connection to an idea of God or a bigger reality. It was, you know, connection to a joke or nature. So that I really realized that what I really meant was deep connection. So, so I wish us all to be sweet to ourselves, be sweet to the part of you that has a strategy of self-blame, and see if you can, like you would for a client, like you would for a child, of what you might do if the child says like they don't like me, and you know, and I did a shitty job, and you know, well, how can I do this? How can I do this? Or whatever the words are, again, which are the same in every culture for every person. Isn't that amazing? That makes me think they're not even, we take them, I'm going to say one last thing for 2 more hours. We think that what we're saying to ourselves is personal. And how could it be personal? It's like 7 billion people in different languages are saying the same damn thing. that have never met, that have a different everything culture. Like, so I do really wonder, like, is it just in the collective? Is it what's the story? So, you know, did the 2 people that got together in Africa that started the human race have this, and we've just been like passing it down genetically for generations? Like, what is this? You know, so whatever it is, it's like, don't take it personally. You know, when you're saying all these things to yourself, you can realize, like, wow, this is like part of human behavior. I think whatever it is, like, this is a story, like this is this is a mistake. was a great idea, Charisse, that didn't work. This is whatever you say to yourself, like shift, see if you can meet that part of you with a little bit of a pattern interrupter and some resources. So again, I'm going to say, as I said, like I'm going to say one last thing for a million times. When I walked in, when I met Milton Erickson, and I walked in and I had read all the books and I was going to know every single thing he did, and I was like ready, and I sat down, and within about 30 seconds we were all in trance, and I had no clue what he did. But I realized what he did was, you know, we were all there with expectations about Milton Erickson, and without any words, he took something off his shelf, God knows what it was, like a little knickknack, and he without words handed it to the first person, and then he kind of, so we were like completely in confusion state. What? Because we have all these expectations of what are we supposed to do, right? And so we're looking at this thing, and then he like points, like pass it on, so the next person's in confusion. What the hell am I supposed to be doing? And then the next person, no one's swallowing, you know, everybody's breathing is slowed down. Everybody's like in trance, having no clue. He didn't say a word. Just doing something sweet that interrupts our normal thing. However you can find that, whatever story, whatever spiritual thing, whatever music you could put on, whatever we do, just see if you can gently, lovingly interrupt what you're doing, and add, you know, be accepting, be loving, add resources, and be aware of, like, what do I want? Where am I going towards? So I am going towards, for sure this time, closing off and sending love to everybody, and let's be kind to ourselves and others, and see what we can move forward on this great planet. Love you. Glad to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yay.
Let's do it again real soon.
Yes. Do it again. Do more.
Okay.
Yay. Lots of other things.
Great to see all of you.
Yeah,
Great to see
great
all of
to
Yeah,
you
see
guys.
Cherise. Nice to see you too.
Great to be with you.
Bye.